Recording in progress.
Good morning, friends, both in the sanctuary and on Zoom. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Franklin and to the mountains of Western North Carolina and Northeast Georgia. We acknowledge that we gather this morning for worship and community upon the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Cherokee Nation. We are a lay-led congregation of progressive minds and caring connections where all who come with open minds and kind hearts are welcome. My name is Mary Tesla, and I'm pleased to be your service leader today. I am joined this morning by our Zoom host and music coordinator, Annette Watlington. In the sanctuary, our tech support, Warren Riley, Bruce Brandsma, Becky Thorndike, and Ian Carson. Our greeters, Marge Abel and Bonnie Gramlich. And Marge, we thank you for the beautiful flowers here in the sanctuary this morning. Our church-related announcements. The worship team appreciates the feedback we received about attending in person following Penny's presentation at our town hall. Based on the feedback, our protocol for those in the sanctuary will require being fully vaccinated and boosted, to wear a mask other than when presenting or for medical reasons. If they're singing, please sing softly to reduce any risk. In the sanctuary, for those in the sanctuary, there's a bowl at the entry for any donations. Also, I'd like to point out that our prelude music begins about 5 minutes before the service as a time to prepare for worship. Are there any other announcements in the sanctuary? Are there any announcements on Zoom?
I don't see anyone on Zoom World looking for attention to announce anything, so I think we're good.
Thank you. The listening room is presenting Laura Herskovitz on Friday, July 15th at 7 p.m. at the Holly Springs Community Center. More information is in the UU View, or you can contact Robbie Greenberg directly. Please be sure to check the UU View for opportunities to be together. We use the same link for all our activities. Our fellowship is a light for liberal religion in the mountains that values diversity and the richness it brings to our community. Our celebration of diversity is reflected in the variety of our Sunday services. On this July 4th holiday weekend, we celebrate our fifth principle as we welcome John deVille with a message on strengthening our democracy. We hope today's service enriches your journey. Our opening words. Unitarian Universalist congregations together affirm and promote 7 principles. We also share a living tradition of wisdom and spirituality drawn from many sources. The 7 principles and 6 sources of the UUA grew out of a grassroots from our communities, were affirmed democratically, and are part of who we are. Today we celebrate our 5th principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Reverend Parissa Parsa shares this reflection on the 5th principle. In our religious lives, the democratic process requires trust in the development of each individual conscience, a belief that such development is possible for each of us, as well as a commitment to cultivate our own conscience. We could call it a commitment to the value of each person. In the words of Theodore Parker, quote, democracy means not I am as good as you are, but you are as good as I am. My connection with the sacred is only as precious as my willingness to acknowledge the same connection in others. Our chalice lighting is by Tracy Bleakney. This chalice burns with twin flames. The first flame burns for those who seek and defend the right to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, so that each person may live according to conscience in a democratically elected society. The second flame burns for the defenders of freedom, working against those who would impose their own religious beliefs on others through intimidation or legislation. May we tend this flame always, ever vigilant and courageous in the struggle for freedom and justice for all. When we organize, we build power in our communities for justice, accountability, and healing. In the last 2 years, UU The Vote has built new networks of spiritual and political communities, and they are active now for the 2022 midterms. Our opening song celebrates our denomination's commitment, called We Shall Be Known.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these vibes. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these vibes. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love.
Our offering words. Our congregation is entirely self-governed by a democratic process, which we celebrated at our annual meeting a few weeks ago. We say in our fellowship that the offering is a sacrament of our free faith. What we mean by that is we believe it is a blessing to be able to govern and support our religious community ourselves, to make possible by our generosity everything we dream of and do to live out our shared values. We are grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. All gifts of time, talent, and treasure are deeply appreciated. Our offertory this morning is number 123, Spirit of Life. Dedication of our gifts. Gifts given in love and hope continue a cycle of love and hope. So may it be. This morning we are delighted to welcome John deVille. John was born in Highlands in 1962 in a hospital that his sister converted to the nonprofit Peggy Crosby Center in the 1990s. His mother, Lynn deVille, was a teacher in Highlands, and both she and his father, Ralph deVille, started the Stone Lantern in 1960, which remained a family business until 2019. His parents were married in a UU fellowship in 1959. John holds a BA in philosophy from UNC Chapel Hill and a BS in social science education from Western Carolina. He has taught American history, philosophy, and government at Franklin High School since 1996 and was Macon County Teacher of the Year in 2006. Since that time, he has been an advocate for the strengthening of public education, working as an activist at both the local and state levels. He is a professional tarot card reader and a podcaster. Links are in the UU View to these other activities. He has conducted free philosophy and history classes for adults the past 3 years and will be leading a seminar on late 19th and early 20th century U.S. imperialism starting in late August. We'll be sure to have links to that information in the UU View. Please join me in welcoming John deVille.
Right up here. Thank you, Mary, and thank you to Don Erickson and for inviting me, and thank you for all of you for allowing me to share some time with you. So you're looking at a social studies teacher who hasn't been in a classroom in 6 weeks, and that's a dangerous place to be, because if high school social studies teachers love two things: stages and the sound of their own voice. So I'm limited here, I think, to about 10 minutes for opening remarks, so I'm going to kind of rapid fire that and kind of think of it as a bunch of sticks, the pickup sticks that I'm going to throw on the floor, and then in the Q&A part you can react in that in any way that you would like. I promise you, you're not capable of hurting my feelings. I teach 17-year-olds for a living. Oh, sorry. Okay. So much for that. Well, there we go. We'll just light it all on fire. I appreciated the prompt, because then, all right, now I've got to respond to a prompt about this democracy thing. And so I just put a bunch of notes into a Google Doc, and then I just finally finalized it early this morning. So I'll start off with, what are metrics? If you're trying to, and if you don't have to take any notes here, if you go to my website, one of my websites, thesocialstudies.org, there is a link in the top right there that says Talk to UU Fellowship on Democracy. So all the notes that I'm reading from to you this morning, all the authors, newspaper articles, and so forth, that's all there for you if you would like to go back and look at that. So how do you know if your democracy is healthy? What kind of temperature checks, barometric pressures do you do? So to me, voter registration availability, voter participation, and I'll throw this question out quickly to you. In the last 100 years, what national election had the greatest participation in the last 100 years? Anybody want to take a shot? Yep, Selma? That's not a bad guess, but no.
Kennedy Nixon.
Say again?
Kennedy Nixon.
That's not a bad guess either, but no. Nope. 2020, by a long shot. Why is 2020 the presidential election with the greatest participation? Because it was the easiest to vote. We made it in the middle of the pandemic. We made it very easy. Dangerously easy if you're on one particular side of the political spectrum. We had mail-in ballots, we had boxes, we took down barriers that have been around forever. And not only did we take down barriers, we created multiple ramps. And in the immediate aftermath of 2020, we have sought to resurrect those barriers and take away and blow up those ramps. So, voter participation. How healthy is your democracy based on what kind of meaningful choices do you have? If you don't feel like you have meaningful choice, then maybe your system isn't very democratic. I would argue to you that our system is binary in the United States because of the Electoral College. It is baked into the Constitution. That doesn't mean that third parties are impotent from the starting line, that they aren't effective, and you can also have transformative movements that take place within the party. We saw the Tea Party, we've seen MAGA, the Democratic Leadership Council after the 1988 election transformed the Democratic Party, FDR transformed the Democratic Party in 32, Goldwater transformed the Republican Party in 64, William Jennings Bryan in 96 transformed the Democratic Party. Parties within, movements within parties can be transformative, and the greater that's out there, then I think the healthier the democracy. Remember, the Republican Party started as a third party. There is a dynamism in American politics that I think because of the superficial binary choice we're not aware of. I have argued in my class for decades that we operate in a reverse of a parliamentary system. In parliamentary government, you have multiple parties running. Rarely does one party get a majority, and so you have to have a coalition post hoc. In our system, the coalitions emerge before the election. And so you cannot look at either of the two major parties and see them as static entities because they are anything but. Those coalitions shift, and you can be passive and just kind of watch them shift. You can also be an active participant and effectuate shifts as an activist. So those are some positive things. Those are some, maybe I think we've got the dynamism. I think voter participation, at least at the moment, is healthy. Where are we being attacked? What are the viruses? I think dark money truncates meaningful choice. I think it has an insidious impact, especially when the donors are anonymous. If I could wave a magic wand to restore the health of American democracy, I would eliminate gerrymandering. Gerrymandering polarizes the country. Gerrymandering turns primary into a verb, and that just drives the conversation further and further to extremes. We don't have to have a meaningful conversation with each other as voters. If I'm across the aisle, I'm safe, you're safe, nothing really matters. And the Supreme Court just this past week has accepted the case of Moore versus Harper, which is a North Carolina case which not only is it going to deal with gerrymandering, it stands to, given the current sensibilities of the court, stands to provide tremendous amount of power to state legislatures that they heretofore have not had. The Senate is inherently democratic. We have a 50-50 split in our Senate. The Democratic half of the Senate represents 41.5 million more people than the Republican half. Now, that's baked into the Constitution, that's intentional, but it's never been that far out of whack. That spillover in terms of a Senate that's out of balance democratically. We had a president who received 3 million fewer votes than his opponent, who named 1/3 of the current justices to the Supreme Court. That's a problem. Voter suppression. We had a Voting Rights Act in 1965, Shelby versus Holder, which I believe is 2013. Within 24 hours of Shelby v. Holder, Texas starts enacting voter ID laws. North Carolina is a few milliseconds after it. There were tremendous voter purges in the wake of Shelby versus Holder. They're all legal because it put a lot of power back in the hands of counties. Georgia. The North Carolina's voter ID law doesn't trouble me so much. It's a bit obnoxious, but I think it's been whittled down to where it's manageable. But Georgia's voter law that they passed this past session is dangerous because it gives the General Assembly of the state of Georgia the right to basically take away county control and just say, well, Fulton County, you didn't count the votes right. We're going to put our guy in charge, and that's not good. And then the rules that were put in place for people who were just standing in queue to vote. It is illegal now in the state of Georgia for me to bring you a granola bar and a bottle of water while you are standing in line to vote. That is nuts. Reasons for hope and what can we do? Well, we're not killing 2.5%, 2% of our population. So we're not in the 1860s. Okay, so that's how bad is it? Well, it ain't that bad. It's not the 1920s, but we are if you want to understand where we are in 2022, go look at the decade of the 1920s. Look at suppression, look at anti-immigration, look at the ideology of the 1920s Klan, which is the most substantial Klan in American history, and then compare it to the ideologies that you see on the stage today. What happens with one-party rule? We've had one-party rule at the state level. We've had one-party rule at the federal level. Let me tell you what happens with one party, just like what happens with one family. People bicker. They split. Okay, so don't take this snapshot in your mind of whatever is going on at the moment and freeze that and say, well, it's just not going to get any better, because history has demonstrated that there is always dynamism there. There are going to be splits. Coalitions are going to shift. We just had a radical galvanizing moment Friday last. So people who were absolutely apathetic, inert as political actors are no longer apathetic or inert. They are galvanized as I've not seen in my political lifetime. The Dobbs decision is going to reverberate, I think, for a generation. Understand that we are I've taught this for 20 years, and I think, I don't know of anybody else who teaches this, but I've always argued that we are a small p Protestant nation. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we are inherently, our DNA is anti-authority. Originally in Western civilization, the Protestant church rebels against the Catholic Church, and then what happens to the Protestant community? It inevitably, forever and ever splits. I mean, there's a reason that there's 45 Baptist churches in Franklin, okay? There's a difference of opinion in the congregation, they split. And while it may feel good for a moment, okay, my team is in charge, at some point my team is going to bicker and it's going to split. So hold on to that. Hold on to the fact that federalism, while it frequently frustrates us, federalism also inoculates us. So it's not just the federal government that's in charge. There are 50 state governments, and those 50 state governments can make up their own minds a lot of times. Okay, hold on to that. So what should we do? What should we do? I think we ought to confront and call out fascist tendencies. And if you go to the link, I've got 14 fascist tendencies, because to me, the antithesis of democracy is fascism. So we need to identify what the enemy is of democracy and identify it, label it. I think maybe we should push for ranked choice voting. Up until last Friday, I was against packing the Supreme Court. Now I'm of the opinion, hell yes, pack it. Put 6 people on there. Okay, this court has shown itself to be dangerously activist and anything but conservative. Push for donor transparency. Confront the anti-democratic voter suppression laws. Go after the persuadables. How did Madison Cawthorn get defeated? Madison Cawthorn won every single rural precinct in the primary. Chuck Edwards beat him because the Republican Party identified unaffiliateds in Buncombe County. They targeted them, and they got them to vote for Chuck Edwards. Other people can follow that lead. Last 2 things I think may be the most important. We need to, as progressives, need to be looking for affinity spaces. Rather than invoking one obnoxious purity test after another, we have to look to our brothers and sisters, the people that we live with in the community, and where we agree. Quit looking for where we disagree. That gets nobody anywhere. Look for where we agree. I highly recommend Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind to that. You can read the book, you can watch the YouTube videos. Stop talking down. And I'm going to quote James Carville, because to me this is incredibly powerful. Carville, you ever get the sense that people in faculty lounges and fancy colleges use a different language than ordinary people? They come up with a word like Latinx that no one else uses. They use a phrase like communities of color. I don't know anyone who speaks like that. I don't know anyone who lives in a community of color. I know white and black and brown people, and they all live in neighborhoods. There's nothing inherently wrong with these phrases, but it's not how people talk. It's not how voters talk. And doing it anyway is a signal that you're talking one language and the people that you want to vote for you are speaking another. This stuff was harmless in one sense, but in another sense it's not. Interviewer, is the problem the language or the fact that there are lots of voters who just don't want to hear about race and racial injustice? Carville, we have to talk about race. We should talk about racial injustice. What I'm saying is we need to do it without using jargony language that's unrecognizable to most people, including most black people, by the way, because it sends a signal that you're trying to talk around them. I would say talk down to them, that this too cool for school crap doesn't work and we have to stop it. And then finally, I'll end with Rumi. Practice patience. It is the essence of praise. Have patience, for that is true worship. No other worship is worth as much. Have patience. Patience is the key to all relief. And that's all I got, but I'm happy for your questions or comments. Thank you.
John, thank you so much. We're going to step down to the
Okay.
thrust here,
All right.
and I will help with the questions,
Okay.
and we will see what happens.
I see you, Laura. Hold on just a moment, please. Let's let them get set up.
We have questions here in the sanctuary first. Fine, let me bring you the mic. Fine, let me bring you the mic.
I cannot hear anything. My hearing is lousy. The first thing I tell my kids is that I'm deaf.
Okay, I will speak clearly. Is this better? Thank you. When you were mentioning, your talk was great. I loved it. A little fast for my brain. So I wish I could hear it again on slow-mo. But you had talked about the problems facing
About what?
problems facing fair voting, and you mentioned certain things. But one thing you didn't mention was you mentioned dark money
Right.
as an example. But what about misinformation in the news? Did you not mention it because it's impossible?
I didn't miss this information. To me, I guess the reason I didn't address misinformation in the news is, as an amateur historian, that is a given. From the founding, from the colonial period to the present day, misinformation is ubiquitous. If you think the newspapers and Fox News are hideous, then you need to go read the American Aurora. You need to go back and read the papers of the 19th century, throughout the 20th century. It's always been bad.
Sigh. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, I'm going to ask you to step up on the thrust because the camera will capture you in all your glory. So much better. Other questions here in the sanctuary? Okay. Let's see if there's a question on Zoom, and then we'll see if other ones come up.
Olga has her hand up first, Laura. Let's go ahead, Olga. Unmute yourself.
All right. I must say I'm a disciple of John, so take that whichever way you want. But I really appreciate, John, you talking about Latinx. When that first came out, it just rubbed my Latina soul totally the wrong way, because it just did not connect to who we are as Latino people. So I think part of the reason I think I was effective in my profession is because I did not use diagnostic labels. I tried to talk to people so that they understood me. Even when I first came here, I didn't understand them. So I think that, yes, that we need to not come down to any level, but actually level who we are with the people that we're talking to.
Thank you. I'll let me piggyback on that, Olga, and thank you for the kind words. I've got a friend who is a master organizer. He never speaks of ideology. It just doesn't, all I've done is done some sort of a signal, and if you're already on my team, then he's not really doing anything effective, and then if he's on team X, then it's almost impossible to have a conversation. I'm going to plug my former student, Danny Woodward, and Chloe Maxwell's book here, Dirt Road Revival. It just came out this past May, How to Rebuild Rural Politics and Why Our Future Depends on It. Chloe flipped a Republican seat in the Maine State House. She flipped and then the following turn, she flipped a seat that was held by the Republican leader. This is in rural Maine, and one of the tricks was not wearing your ideology on your sleeve, but just having real conversations, and we use Olga's beautiful phrase, to level yourself down.
Thank you. Dawn?
Hang on, Laura.
Hi, John. With all your knowledge and interest in politics, I'm surprised that we don't see your name on the ballot. I noticed that in that book you were referencing a guide to planning the campaign, I think, for Chloe Maxman, and I assume for Jane Hips, but we don't see your name on the ballot. Can you explain why? Because you got my vote.
You answered the question in words. So it's because of all my knowledge and history in politics that my name is not on the ballot. I know I couldn't. I'm a behind. I appreciate the plaudits, but I'm a better behind the scenes person. Maybe, but I look at the landscape and I don't, only just the most abject masochist would ever run for school board. But school board races are important, so there's probably the 10th hypocritical thing I've said today. County commission, I don't think I don't get it. Here's what informs my activism, all my activism. I will tilt at windmills all day long, but I've got to see a scene. I've got to see where either I can win or set the stage for somebody else to win. I'm not going to tilt at windmill to get my hand locked off and not be able to advance the cause. So I do appreciate the positive remark. I appreciate the support.
Do we have any other questions on Zoom?
Yeah, we've got a couple more on Zoom. Laura, please go ahead. No, you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. I loved this discussion, and it's only 11:30. I think you could go back up to the podium and say it all over again, because it was fast. I wonder if John would repeat that
You can always ask him back another time.
website about teaching, where we could get all the information that you used for today's discussion, especially since we lost the first page. What was it?
So the key website for this stuff right here is socialstudies.org. Socialstudies.org.
I didn't get it.
Podcast link is okay.
I'm sorry, that was mumbled.
Laura?
Yep, can you put it in the Zoom?
These were in the
chat.
These were in the, Laura, these are in the UU View for this week. And
Oh, okay.
I will put them in again so that people can have them, so you can just follow them from the UU View.
Thank you, that's good.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll put the title of the book as well.
Okay.
Okay, and we have
Yeah.
some, oh, go ahead, Jill. I don't have to read it if you're gonna, go ahead, Jill.
I thought people were going to read it off from there, but that's fine. I'm wondering, since you teach 17-year-olds, do you still have hope for the future of democracy in the future?
Absolutely. Yes. I specifically, I would say that the greatest source of my hope is the generation that's 30 and under. That is the greatest source of my hope. They are more loving, they are more tolerant, they are less tribal, they don't care what your political party, they have no use for the tribes of their parents or their grandparents. That appears to be apathetic to those of us that are boomers, but it's anything but. They just do it differently.
Thank you.
John, let me bring you the mic.
Thank you.
Can you hear me, John?
I can.
Okay, very good. Thank you, first of all, for being here with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presence. And the question I have is, I'm not sure that you said anything about Citizens United. Do you have any thoughts on that?
On what?
Citizens United.
Citizens, well, dark money.
Okay.
Okay, so, it's time for the civics lesson on the 14th Amendment, which is, you go down the 14th Amendment rabbit hole. 14th Amendment is what created corporations to speak. Okay? 14th Amendment, half the cases that go to the Supreme Court get there going through the archway of the 14th Amendment. So you've got Justice Thomas, who doesn't like a lot of the 14th Amendment decisions and has said so. So it's going to be very interesting to see what type of judicial, what kind of jurisprudential pretzel that the court turns itself into to eviscerate a huge body of opinions that are based on particular interpretations of the 14th Amendment while protecting all these corporate ones like Citizens United and Santa Clara Railroad, that's the big one, going back to the 19th century. How do they protect those on the other side? That's true, but yeah. So I've got friends who, they're going all in on Citizens United. And in my opinion, and I could probably, be very wrong, I think it's a waste of time. You're trying to stop water from coming into a boat. You have a bilge pump for that. You cannot make that boat 100% waterproof. Money is going to find a way in. I think we would be better off putting our efforts elsewhere, with one exception. We got to know where the money's coming from. So donor transparency, knowing where Susie Smith got her money, that I think we have every right to fight for it. But trying to keep Susie Smith from getting it, I don't know how to do it. Oh, again, it goes back. George Washington at the polls, he's manipulating the vote. He ain't innocent. He's got wine and beer and booze there, okay, and he's counting the votes as they come in, and when he thinks he's got enough, then the beer and the booze and the wine go away. Okay, this is it's oxygen. Or as the more cynical people would say, the cynical politician from Franklin told me, can't get rid of it, John. Money is the mother's milk of politics.
It's so wonderful to hear you. Have you here, believe me. The fact that you say the young people are the hope. This is the thing that I have said all along when I talk to the young ones, that's what I tell them. People like me, we're on the way out. We're on the other side already. It's up to them. They have to understand, they have to know what happened yesterday and why, so that they can change tomorrow, so it doesn't happen again. That's the thing. They're not letting them know too much about yesterday. And don't you believe that they need to know and understand yesterday so that they know what's happening today and therefore can change tomorrow?
I do. That's what I try to practice 180 days out of the year and some days in between. But I'm one person. There are a lot of, you would be surprised at the number of social studies teachers who do have that agenda, and that's why there's pushback on that type of education. So you get the straw man, red herring of critical race theory, which is not taught in any school in this country. It's not taught in any 4-year university. It's a law school thing. But it's effective. The fact that that boogeyman has been erected is a testament to our collective effectiveness in the classroom.
So, if I can throw this out there, I realize this is not going to be a very positive and upbeat comment, but it really needs to be said. The Republican Party, the party of fascism, had greater than 40 years to destroy a constitutional right. And I've spoken to many of y'all, and I've spoken to other people around, and there's this idea that a lot of folks on our side have. Well, it took them 40 years to do that. It may take us a generation or two, but we'll get that right back. And I'm absolutely gobsmacked. Look around. The climate catastrophe is not going to give us 40 years to wait around for that. The climate catastrophe is taking us out. And the question before us is, do we go out in a more pleasant way, trying to make some things better? Or do we go out in the absolute hellscape of authoritarianism and putting it on our kids and our grandkids? No wonder they don't vote. No wonder they don't want anything to do with any of this. That's not right. We did it. We have the responsibility. If you ever saw the movie Apollo 13, the big thing about that is fix the boat. It may capsize, we may all die anyway, but fix the boat. We don't turn to our children and say, okay, you guys got to fix the boat. We all have to fix the boat. So I'm sorry, but I'm just, this is authoritarianism, y'all. This is fascism. This is not, this is a failed country.
And then thank you. We're going to take one more question from Marge before we finish. No, you don't have to.
I guess the issue that concerns me, John, is that Biden says vote, and I totally agree. That's a great idea. But you look at all those states that, including North Carolina, that have gerrymandering, and some have Secretary of States or governors who can overturn elections. And I'm a little concerned about what the future holds for our midterm election, considering these circumstances. I mean, voting is a great idea, but I'm a little concerned about where that's going to get us in those states that are severely gerrymandered, and also in the states where governors and secretaries of state have pretty much authority over the election process.
Okay, so I'm hearing 2 points. I'm hearing gerrymandering makes voting ineffectual. It's a slight overstatement, but that's where I think you're headed. And the other one is we've got governors and incoming or existing secretaries of state in the various state governments that that's what the January 6th hearings are all about. What that committee is doing is sending a message. We're going to indict you. We are coming after you. We are going to, what Liz Cheney, who's no innocent, but has found the Constitution, is saying is that within a broader mafia perspective, there are rules. and Donald Trump broke those rules. And if you enable those kind of rule breaking within a particular mafia family that she is an inheritor of, an heiress of, we're coming after you. Now, is that effective? I don't know. Again, that's why I go back to patience. You know, gerrymandering is a thing. Okay? So when Don said run for office, I have seriously considered that if I ran for office, I would run as a Republican. I think that was what I would probably do. I would, yeah. Why speak in an echo chamber? What good does that do? I don't want to speak. I want to do what Liz Cheney did 3 days ago at the Ronald Reagan Library and spoke to a group of Republicans and got a long round of applause for saying Donald Trump broke the rules. He doesn't believe in the Constitution that people in this room did. And she's playing a long game. She's smart. She's creating a singular lane to run for president, and she's doing a beautiful job. And she's showing how to fight. She knows how. Daddy and Mama taught her how to fight.
John, we're deeply, deeply grateful to have you here with
I'll
us.
hang out afterwards and have.
I was gonna say, to Marge's point about being frustrated, will her vote count? What is the alternative if you do not vote? That, to me, is.
Thank you, Bonnie. John, we're so very grateful to have you.
And thank you all very much.
Our closing song is by Joe Jenks as a tribute to Pete Seeger and his resistance during the McCarthy era. Pete was a longtime Unitarian Universalist.
You've asked me here to tell you about my neighbors and my friends, to talk about the who and what, the where and how and when. But I won't give you anything you don't already know. But if you'd like, I'll sing that list of songs before I go. Let me sing you a song about the people that I love, the poets and philosophers, the workers and the wanderers, the ones who walk the picket lines, who dare to stand and fight, and the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night. Now you say it's un-American to do the things I do. Well, I sing for justice, liberty, and civil rights, it's true. But I say it's un-American to ask me how I vote, how I pray, or what I believe. But here's a song I wrote. Let me sing you a song about the people that I love, the poets and philosophers, the workers and the wanderers, the ones who walk the picket lines, who dare to stand and fight, and the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night. want to send me to prison, I guess that's the way it'll be. 'Cause I won't give you fodder for your paranoid machine. If the price of my silence is shackles, well then, fellas, take me away. For I will live to sing again and rise with a brand new day. Let me sing you a song about the people that I love, the poets and philosophers, the workers and the wanderers, the ones who walk the picket lines, who dare to stand and fight, and the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night. Let me sing you a song about the people that I love, the poets and philosophers, the workers and the wanderers, the ones who walk the picket lines, who dare to stand and fight, and the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night. Yes, the ones who hold their babies close and rock them through the night.
We'll now pause our recording. This time we ask if our visitors would like to introduce themselves. We're delighted to have two visitors in the sanctuary today. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Calvin and Gail May, who live in Dillsboro.
From Dillsboro? Wonderful. It's great to have you here. We're delighted. We'll now have a moment of silence. Our closing words are by Timothy Snyder, a professor of history at Yale University. His books include On Tyranny, 20 Lessons for the 20th Century. Thank you to Clark Shope for bringing this important book to our discussion group earlier this year. Timothy Snyder's words: life is political, not because the world cares about how you feel, but because the world reacts to what you do. The minor choices we make are themselves a kind of vote. Make it more or less likely that free and fair elections will be held in the future. In the politics of the everyday, our words and gestures, or their absence, count very much. The symbols of today enable the reality of tomorrow. We extinguish this chalice, but carry with us the light of vision and the warmth of hope. The world calls us to live with depth, meaning, and purpose. Together we may go forth with commitment, courage, and love. When we are together, we circle the sanctuary and join hands for our closing circle and covenant. For now, those in the sanctuary may choose to join hands, while those of us on Zoom will join with you in spirit as we recite our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and community is its goal. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So may it be.